Hey everyone, I'm Ash, and you're listening to the Avenue podcast. In this series, we're diving into God's heart for justice. Through these conversations, we hope God's call to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly becomes a lived reality in your life.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Avenue podcast, and we're on the last episode of the series on this Kingdom Justice series, and I'm here with Henry, and we're really excited to wrap this series up and to talk about the future that God has in store for his people. But before that, maybe something lighthearted as we're talking about the future, Henry. What's a future dream that you had, but maybe it hasn't happened yet or hasn't come into existence?
You know, I'm someone who loves my ideas, so there's many of them. I've probably actually got a long list on my notes, to be honest. Yeah, I think a dream that I would love to see. We've just had the election and voting.
Yep.
And I would love to see a much easier digital way to do voting. So I feel like we've got the technology for it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why we're still doing paper, you know,
True.
when I don't even own a sheet of paper. So yeah, one day.
Maybe you can pioneer that.
Yeah, that's
integrate your AI dreams as well.
Yeah,
with that
exactly.
too.
Bring tech to politics.
Yeah,
yep.
nice.
Yep. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, for me,
any future dreams?
Look, a dream that I had when I was a kid was I always wanted to be one of those not rubbish truck drivers, one of those pickup truck drivers.
Yep.
Who carry stuff at a construction site. I don't know why. I think I just had a dream of doing that, but that hasn't happened, and I don't think I'd be very good at that either because I'm very careless. Hey, maybe another life as well. Who knows?
Yep.
But yeah, that's something that I had in mind as a kid, but things have changed a lot since
Lots of
then.
things changed.
That's right.
That's it.
Well, we're going to be unpacking Revelation 21 today, which I'm really excited about because that is the end of the Bible, the end of the story.
Yep.
So it's a pretty big chapter. So if you're reading through it, I would encourage you to read through the whole chapter. But for the sake of time, I reckon, Henry, let's read through verses 1 to 8.
Yep.
And then let's read through 22 to 27 at the end as well.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe you can read the first one from 1 to 8, and I'll read 22 to 27. How does that sound?
Yep. So this is Revelation 21, 1 to 8.
Yeah.
Awesome. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, "Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, or sorrow, or crying, or pain. All these things are gone forever." And the one sitting on the throne said, "Look, I am making everything new." And then he said to me, "Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true." And he also said, "It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children."
And then at the end, verses 22 to 27, it says, "I saw no temple in the city, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates the city, and the Lamb is its light. The nations will walk in its light, and the kings of the world will enter the city in all their glory. Its gates will never be closed at the end of day, because there is no night there. And all the nations will bring their glory and honor into the city. Nothing evil will be allowed to enter, nor anyone who practices shameful idolatry and dishonesty, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life."
Yeah, I love this chapter, like getting so close to the end of the Bible, and it's just it's like at the end of the movie when everything is made right and you can just be at ease, and it's like the happily ever after. And the fact that we've got this beautiful happily ever after with this like utopia, no more pain, I just think is it's inspiring, and it's yeah, it's exciting to see this one day.
It gives you a lot of hope
It does.
that everything we experience in this world is only temporary, and this is what is forever. This is the thing that goes on forever and ever. And that's hard for us to imagine with our finite minds. But I think part of that is imagining and just knowing that God has so much more than we could ever ask, think, or imagine. But I see this also as the culmination of what the scriptures are pointing to as well. The prophets, they have been imagining this time. They have been seeing visions of this time when everything will be made right. And this is everything that the prophets have been anticipating and been looking forward to, this final new Jerusalem, the new heavens, the new earth.
Yeah, and it's not just we're going to take what's existing and sort of improve it, do a bit of a renovation. This is a knockdown rebuild.
Yeah.
This is a full recreation, and it's just very, I love the restorative elements of this. And, we've been speaking about justice and in this, sometimes from our perspective of justice, you could say oh, hang on a second, I didn't see any justice here. But that's because we're looking at it. We tend to look at things more from a punitive point of view of justice, because our laws in our current society, they are they're punishments, But here we see justice in a restorative and freeing and just healing way, and I just love that.
Yeah, because there's two versions of justice, which is what we have kind of unpacked throughout the series. There's retributive justice, where that is a justice all about the person who's done wrong paying the price and the penalty that they deserve. But then there's restorative justice as well, and that's a justice that is filled with mercy, with love. And Micah 6 verse 8 says to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. That is a picture of justice that we see here, and it's restorative because it says here that every tear will be wiped away. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. So that's the picture of justice that the Bible paints. It's a world where there is no more suffering and pain.
Yeah. What a beautiful world to live in. And I think this is very comforting whenever you go through hard times, or, you're just struggling with things that you sort of feel like I've been praying about this, and when am I going to be freed from this? And obviously there's freedom with Jesus, and you can claim that right now, but there's also a time when all of the world's problems will just dissolve. Yeah. So this idea of permanence doesn't exist for problems, because the Bible tells us that all problems will disappear.
Yeah. My question though, Henry, is this is the picture, this is the utopia as you put it. And my question is, why can't this utopia exist here? Why can't if we look deep down, everyone in this world is craving some sort of utopia. Everyone has this vision of a just utopia in their mind. And many people have tried through different ideologies to achieve their version of utopia. Why does that utopia never prove to be successful here in this world?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we can find the answer in the text, because we see that this justice is enabled through God's presence. And we see that presence in the fact that there's now no more temples.
Yeah.
God's presence doesn't dwell in the temples, it dwells everywhere. We also see that in that there's not going to be any more sun or moon.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be God's presence will just illuminate everything. And so with that, there's no hiding or deception, which that is, I think, part of the recipe, part of the ingredients that create the outcome of injustice.
Well, it says that the gates are fully open.
The gates are fully open.
So obviously there's no evil entering into the city. Yeah.
And I love the historical context of that, in that in times of peace in the region, during the Bible times, when the gates were open of these cities, it symbolized, there weren't any threats. It was a safe time. And so, unfortunately, there are threats to goodness, and so I think that unfortunately does taint some of the morality and ethics in society, which then leads to injustices.
Exactly. What I see here, and what we see throughout the narrative of the Bible as well, is that the problem isn't so much with the system or the structure. The problem is more so with the human heart.
That's right. Yep.
And unless the human heart is changed, we can't ever have this just society.
Yeah.
And that's what we see at the end here. It's a picture where people's hearts are changed, and people are now moving to the rhythms of other-centered love because God has changed and transformed their hearts from the inside out.
Yeah. I've got a question for you now.
Yeah.
So we said from a global point of view, this type of justice is very challenging, if not impossible to achieve.
Yeah.
How about in the church, where we are transformed by the power of Jesus?
Wow, that's a good question. I definitely think we can have a bit of heaven here on earth. That's for sure.
Yep.
And I think as I've spent time with church community, I see so many glimpses of heaven here on earth. Just the way people serve each other, the way people care for each other, the way people love each other, the way people pour themselves out for each other. Like, I see heaven in that. But at the same time, while the kingdom is already here, the kingdom is also not yet.
That's right.
So,
and we're still imperfect beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to understand about the nature of God's kingdom. The kingdom is already, but not yet. It's a bit of a contradiction, a bit of a paradox, but that's what scholars describe the kingdom as. It's a reality, but its full consummation, it lies in the future.
Yeah, that's right. I think by keeping our eyes focused on that future, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Can help us shape church culture towards that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what you're aiming for, you're unlikely to get it. So
that's right.
We should, always be modeling this approach and this vision for justice. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? What is that vision? What does that vision embody?
Yeah.
What are those values?
I see a lot of unity. I think, the gates are never closed. It's open, all are welcome. And it also talks about how, all the kings will show their glory. It's like this thing of everyone is now royalty.
Yeah.
Where it's like everyone is noble and well respected and sort of has that intrinsic value, but it's not like how we've done it in history, where only like one family will have that.
Exactly.
This is like all the kings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like this equal, very high standard for respect.
Yeah.
And I also love that it says all the nations.
Yeah.
So when we talk about injustices, we've seen it in the past and we see it today. We see injustices around races and like racism and stuff like that. And, the Bible's saying here very clearly, all the nations, there's going to be a united humanity, and I just love that. Yeah.
Oh, that's really amazing. And I think one thing that you've told me as well, which is what I see here, is there's two economies.
Yep.
This is what you've told me. There's two economies. There's the economy of buying and selling, which is the economy that we currently inhabit. But then there is the economy of giving and receiving.
That's right.
And this is the economy that I see painted here in Revelation 21, where it's not like people are buying and selling with money, but there is this flow.
That's right.
In this kingdom. There's this flow where we as royal priests, royalty, are giving from the bottoms of our heart, but then also receiving because other people are also giving, and there's this beautiful flow. And that is the way in which you have life. You have life when you give. The reason why the Dead Sea is dead is because there's 5 streams that are flowing into the Dead Sea, but then there's nothing flowing out of the Dead Sea.
Interesting.
And in order to have life, in order to not be dead, you can't just be receiving, but you need to give as well. And this is the picture that I see in Revelation 21, an economy of giving and receiving.
Yeah, I think that economy also is a lot more protected from injustices, because it's not like I'm trying to maximize my value for myself,
Yeah.
which can occur in buying and selling, where
Yeah.
each party's trying to maximize their benefit.
Yeah.
In this case, it's completely reversed, you know.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be people getting exploited,
Mm.
people getting taken advantage of,
Yeah.
which is, I think, one of the core like creations that lead to injustices is like one person pushing someone else down
Exactly.
to push themselves up.
Well, that was what the prophets in the Old Testament, like all of the prophets were rebuking people of Israel for oppressing and putting people down
Yeah.
to lift themselves up.
Right.
They were scamming their neighbors.
Yeah.
They were using dishonest scales.
Yep.
They were just trying to maximize their own welfare while treading on everyone else's welfare in the whole
Yeah,
process.
and like you can't do that with a giving and like it literally
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to do that for giving and receiving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, like I'm very excited for this future form of justice. And something that's interesting is like we're talking about the future here, but in many ways this is the first justice. This is actually just returning to how things initially were intended to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe like if you want to speak to that some more, Jeremy.
Yeah, definitely. You see so much imagery in this text of Revelation 21 of Edenic imagery.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is there is a lot that is alluding to Genesis chapter 1 and 2 when God's creating the world, where God's creating humanity. And it's almost like there's this beautiful bookend here in Revelation 21 and 22 where it's drawing on all that imagery to show that this is a return to Eden, but also more than that as well. This is even more than a return to Eden, because in Eden, there's this beautiful book that John Mark Comer writes called Garden City, which talks about how we started in a garden, but then in Revelation 21, what we see is a garden city. It's this picture of what humanity is supposed to be, where we are extending beauty, extending the blessing to this world. But then I'm also thinking to the worlds beyond as well. Because you imagine, right? Humanity does everything it's supposed to do, to be fruitful, to multiply, to inhabit and subdue the earth. And the earth becomes super populated. What happens next? I think God's like, all right, let's extend that blessing to another world. Let's create something else. Like that's what I see the future looking like. And there's nothing in the Bible to really say that explicitly, but that in my mind is the image that I have of God.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's an exciting future to be going into, and like something that is similar to Eden, but even greater, so
exactly. And that is what we look forward to as believers and as disciples. It's this just world where there is no more dishonesty, deception, and oppression, but it's this world where every tear is wiped away and people are moving to those rhythms of other-centered love. And that is what we look forward to, but we can have a bit of that here on earth as well.
That's right.
By modeling our value structures after the kingdom of the future. Yeah,
definitely. And I'd just like to encourage anyone listening or watching, maybe you've experienced injustices and maybe, people get away with things and just cause a real sadness for you. I just want to encourage you that, God has a version of justice and of restoration that's so much more beautiful than anything that our legal systems could offer. And just to find peace in that, and just look forward to a world made new. I'd say that's the main thing.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the podcast.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us for this series of Kingdom Justice.
Yeah, it's been good.
Thanks for listening to the Avenue podcast and our series on justice. We believe conversations about faith, life, and the scriptures help us to walk in our God-given potential. My name is Gracie, and if you want to learn more about our community and get in touch with us, you can connect with us through the handle @Avenue Mission on social media platforms.